A very good morning to my dear students of class 7, and I am happy to welcome you all once again to my zoology class. So what are we going to learn today? Today's topic is going to be about reflex actions. What is today's topic? Reflex actions. So let's get started. Before learning about reflex actions, in our previous class we have studied about the organs of the nervous system, right? What have we studied about the organs of the nervous system? You know, the main organs of the nervous system include the brain and the spinal cord. Do you remember? We have studied in our last class. The main organs of the nervous system include the brain and the spinal cord. This brain is divided into three parts called cerebrum, cerebellum and medulla oblongata, right? So what are the three parts of the brain? Cerebrum, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So about cerebrum and cerebellum we have already studied in our previous class, but we have not yet completed medulla oblongata and spinal cord, right? So in this class I will complete the topics medulla oblongata and spinal cord and then go into the topic called reflex actions. We will study about the term reflex actions in detail. The process, what all happens in reflex actions, we will be learning in detail in this class. So let's start with medulla oblongata. In our previous class I had already displayed this picture, right? So what is this? This is the structure of the brain. Here you can see three parts. The largest part called cerebrum, and this blue color region is called cerebellum, and this purple color region is called the medulla oblongata. So about cerebrum and cerebellum already the detailed structure and their functions, everything we have studied in our last class. In this class let's learn about medulla oblongata. This small purple color or lavender color region is called the medulla oblongata. Where is it located? What is the location of medulla oblongata? Where can you find? It is found in the posterior end of the hindbrain. The brain is divided into three parts called forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So in the posterior end, what does posterior end means? Posterior means the back side. Okay, so at the back side of the hindbrain only you can find the medulla oblongata. This is found at the back side of the brain. Clear? And also you can see this in continuation with the spinal cord. Which is the spinal cord? Where is the spinal cord? The bone, the long bone what you have in the back, no, it is also called as backbone. That is the spinal cord. It starts below your, if you can touch at the back side of the neck, you can sense a rod like structure, that is the spinal cord. So it is in continuation of the spinal cord. Here this stick like structure, white structure, do you see the rod like structure? This is the beginning of the spinal cord. So this medulla oblongata, which is the purple region, is found in continuation, which means it is connected to the spinal cord. So exactly the medulla oblongata is found at the back side of your brain, as well as it continues with the spinal cord. So this is the location about medulla oblongata. And then what are the functions of the medulla oblongata? We have already studied about the functions of cerebrum and the functions of cerebellum, right? So medulla oblongata has more important functions because it controls involuntary actions. What are voluntary actions and what are involuntary actions? Voluntary actions are the actions what you do voluntarily. You decide to do something and you do. If you decide to walk, you can walk. If you decide to jump, you jump. If you decide to eat, you eat. And if you decide to sleep, you sleep. That is under your control. Only when you decide, you will do that. But involuntary actions are the actions which are not under your control. Say for example, the winking of the eyes. You open and close the eyes frequently, is that under your control? Of course you can close, but this winking, you cannot keep your eyes open forever, right? After some time what happens? By unknowingly you wink your eyes. Similarly, the heartbeat is never under your control. Until your last breath stops, your heart keeps beating, which you can never control. Even if you think that you should stop, you cannot stop by yourself. So it is also a involuntary action. Breathing, you do not plan and breathe, no. Even if you voluntarily hold on, suppose if I close my nose for some time, how long can I hold? After some time I will suffocate and I will take off my hands, right? So these are all involuntary actions like breathing, heartbeat and the food movement in the alimentary canal. You take in food, right? Suppose if you swallow some food, you chew the food and swallow, okay. After that, if you think that you should control the movement of the food, you cannot do that. It is not under your control. The movement inside your digestive system is an involuntary action which you can never get into control. So these are all involuntary actions which are controlled by the brain and especially the medulla oblongata of the brain. Clear? So you have already studied the functions of cerebrum and cerebellum, and medulla oblongata's function, the important function is, it is the one which controls the involuntary actions like breathing, heartbeat, food movement in alimentary canal are examples. So this is all about medulla oblongata. Next we will be learning about spinal cord. Where is the spinal cord here? Can you see this blue color region? This is the spinal cord. Here you can see the brain. This is brain, and here it continues with the brain. You have already studied in the previous slide that medulla oblongata, that is the posterior part of the brain, that is the back side of the brain, is in continuation with the spinal cord. So the brain, a part of the brain, stays in continuation with the spinal cord. Where is the spinal cord? This blue color region is the spinal cord region. Clear? So this is the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is not exposed outside. It is inside a structure called as vertebral column. So this is the vertebral column. So the spinal cord is inside the structure called vertebral column. So it is cylindrical in shape. What is the shape of a cylinder? It is like this, some way, somewhat like this, right? So similarly, the spinal cord is also, suppose if you cut here, you can find a hollow structure like this. This is the cylindrical structure of a spinal cord. And where it is located, where is the spinal cord located? As I told you, it is located inside the vertebral column. So you have vertebral column outside and spinal cord inside the vertebral column. And as we imagine, spinal cord is not one single structure. It is divided into segments, into small regions. It is divided this way. So it is not a single column, it is divided into small segments. How many segments? 31 segments. This rod like structure is divided into 31 segments, and each segment, every segment is connected to one pair of cranial nerves. We have studied about cranial nerves, no? What is cranial nerves? It is connected to a portion of brain. The nerves are all connected to brain, no? Similarly, the nerves which connect the spinal cord to the brain is named as cranial nerves. Here one segment is connected to one pair of cranial nerves. There are many segments. Now how many segments? 31 segments are there, no? So every segment is connected to one pair, which means 2. One pair refers to 2 cranial nerves. What is the name of the nerves connected to the spinal cord? It is called cranial nerves. So you have to remember these things. What have we studied about spinal cord? It is cylindrical in shape and it is divided into 31 segments, and where it is located inside the vertebral column, and every segment is connected to one pair of cranial nerves. This is about the structure of spinal cord. Then we will study about reflex actions. What are reflex actions? The actions what you do without your consciousness. Say for example, there is a pan, okay, with delicious food. You touch the pan without knowing that it is hot, if you touch the pan, what you will do? Immediately you will take your hand away. First initially you don't know that the pan is hot, so you touch it, but once you sense that it is hot, what you do? Immediately you will take. You will not even think whether to take off your hand or to keep it as such. No, you take by without your plan or without your decisions, you take your hand away. This is a reflex action without proper planning or without deciding whether to continue holding on or to leave. You do without your consciousness, and this is called as reflex actions. You can define reflex action as an automatic response. Why it is automatic? You cannot hold on. Even if you think that you need to hold on, you will not do that, since it is a automatic action. It is a quick action. How will you take off your hand? Will you take very slowly? If an object is very hot, what you do? Immediately you take off your hand. Similarly, if your hand pricks in a pin or something, if somebody pricks you with a pin, what you will do? Immediately you will take your hand, or no? Will you take very slowly? No, right? It is very quick. It is an automatic response. It is a sudden response. Sudden and quick is almost the same. Controlled by the spinal cord. Already we have studied that involuntary actions are all controlled by the medulla oblongata, no? Which is in connection with the spinal cord. Similarly, these reflex actions are controlled by the spinal cord. What is the difference between reflex actions and involuntary actions? Involuntary actions, no, you can never control at all. Like your heartbeat all is never under your control, but this reflex actions, no, you can control to some extent. Suppose if you are holding a hot pan, you know that it is hot, but if you want to hold it on, you can hold it on. But the only thing is your hand is going to be burnt. But if you decide you want to hold it on, you can do that. In the case of reflex actions, generally the man or the woman will be stimulated to take off his hand, but there is a choice that even if you want to hold on, you can hold on. There is an option like that. But in the case of involuntary actions, there is no option at all. You can never control your heartbeat. So there will be no options for you in the case of involuntary actions. Whereas for reflex action, somebody if he or she is pricking you with a pin, the general nature is to take off your hand or to move away, but still there is one choice for you. You can bear the pain and hold on in the case of reflex actions. Can you understand the difference? Involuntary actions can never be controlled. Reflex actions you will be tempted to do automatically, but still there is a choice that you can hold it on. The heat of the pan you can bear. The pain of the pricking with the pin also you can bear. So these actions are, to some extent, it is under your control. So it is about reflex actions. Reflex actions are unconsciously done, no brain movement involvement. Here I told you it is controlled by the spinal cord. Then these reflex actions are of two types called natural reflexes and artificial reflexes. What is this natural reflex and artificial reflex? Natural reflex is inherited from your parents, and when you are born itself you will have this nature. Say for example, if you give something hot to a baby, it will also respond, it will scream, it cannot bear, so it will take off the hand. Even a small baby will respond to certain reflexes, and those type of reflexes are called natural reflexes. You need not teach the baby that it is hot. It itself will sense that something is hot and it will move away from that place. And if you prick a baby with a pin, obviously it will take off the hand. You do not teach that what is pain or something on, the baby still responds. How it knows everything? It has inherited from the parents. Inheritance means the properties or characters which is transmitted from your parents to the next generation. Clear? This is natural reflex. What is artificial reflex? You do something after you learn something. Say for example, applying brake in a car. When a person learns driving and after he is experienced to some extent, whenever he senses that some vehicle is very close to him, automatically his hand will be tempted to hold the brake or to slow down the vehicle. This is a learnt reflex, or it is an artificial reflex what you gain over the years by your experience. It is not, you do not plan every time whether to hold the brake. By yourself automatically your hand will hold the brake whenever there is a necessary. This is a learnt reflex action. You have learnt over the years by your experience. Clear? Can you differentiate both now? What is natural reflex? This is not planned or this is not learnt. These are reflexes what you inherit from your parents since from your birth. In artificial reflex, over the years by your experience you learn something new, and this is called as artificial reflexes. So these are the two types of reflexes. Next we learn about the steps in reflex action. This is the chart of a reflex action. There are 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 steps in the process of reflex action. Okay. Here it starts with a pin. There is a pin and a person accidentally touches the pin. What will happen? The pin will prick him, right? So now the first step is arrival of stimulus and activation of receptors. The red region is the sensory neuron. The white region is the intermediate neuron. I have made it green. Okay. So this is the intermediate neuron, and the black neuron is called the motor neuron. What are they? Sensory neuron, the red ones, intermediate neurons, the white one, and the black one is the motor neurons. In the first step, arrival of the stimulus. What is stimulus? Stimulus means the one which stimulates you, the one which triggers a process. Here, what is the stimulating agent here? The pin is the stimulating agent, because as soon as the pin pricks only the person will react, no? So what is stimulating the person to react? The pin is the stimulus here. So the pin pricking the man is the stimulus. So arrival of the stimulus, that is the pin. And after a man is stimulated, immediately what is the first step? Activation of the receptor. Here the receptor is the sensory neuron. Some signals are transferred to the brain. What signal? A signal that something has pricked you, so you respond like that. The signal is transferred to the brain. Here, since this neuron receives the signal, it is called as receptor. The sensory neuron, no, the red color one, this is called a receptor because it receives the stimulus signal. What is the stimulus? The pin is the pricking of the pin is the stimulus, and here the receptor is the sensory neuron which receives the stimulus. What is the second step? Activation of the sensory neuron. This is the sensory neuron. Now the receptor is the sensory neuron. Activation means the signals are passed from your hand to the brain. The receptor, that is the pain signals in your receptors in your hands, will send the message to the brain that something has pricked you. Activation means just passing over the messages. So second step, activation of sensory neuron means the sensory neuron now works by passing the signal from your receptor to the brain. And the third step is information processing in CNS. What is CNS? We have already studied CNS as central nervous system, right? So now the information is processed in the central nervous system. This is the central nervous system. In this case it is the spinal cord. This region, no, it is the spinal cord. Okay, so here the information is processed. How it is processed? This intermediate neuron, now which is white in color, will get the information that something has pricked and it will send the information to the black neuron, that is the motor neuron. What information? It will instruct the motor neuron to take away, to move your muscles so that you are relieved from the pain. Okay. And the third step is information processing in CNS. What information is processed? It gets the information from the sensory neuron, the intermediate neuron gets the information from sensory neuron and gives it to the motor neuron. This means that it is processing the information. The fourth step is activation of the motor neuron. Which is the motor neuron here? The black neuron, no, it is the motor neuron. Activation means now again the signals or the messages are passed from the spinal cord to the muscles of the body. Where is the muscles? In your arms you have muscles. Now see this region, it is called the effector, and effector means either the muscles or the glands. Which area of your body will respond to something, that area is called the effector. Say for example, when you are emotional, your tear glands secrete tears. When you are tempted to eat a sweet, your salivary glands secrete more saliva, no? These are all effectors. Something which responds to action is called the effector. So here in this case the muscles will react. How it will react? It will make your hand to, when you move the muscles, your hand itself will move away. So here it is called the effector. So the first step is response of the effector. Which is the effector? I told you here the muscles are the effectors. No, the response of the effector means the muscles moves. There is movement in the muscles. This movement will make you get relieved from the pain. When you take away the hand, your pain will stop. The pricking pain will stop. So this is the response. So for what are the 5 steps in a reflex action? And see this, if you see, it is in the form of an arc, and so it is also called by the word reflex arc. Since see the movement of the signals is in the form of an arc, the shape is an arc shape, and that's why this reflex action is called by another name, that is called as reflex arc. So what are the 5 steps? The first step is the man receives the stimulus and the receptors are activated. Which is the receptor? You have pain receptors in hand, and that receptors will trigger the sensory neuron. Step 2 is activation of the sensory neuron. The sensory neurons will pass on the messages from the pain receptors to the spinal cord or the brain. In this case the picture is given as spinal cord, so it sends to the spinal cord. The third step is information processing in the central nervous system. What information is processed? The signals are received from the sensory neuron and it is given to the motor neuron. Fourth step, activation of the motor neuron. Now the motor neuron instructs the muscles to react, that is the muscles is the effector here. The name of the muscle is effector. And fifth step is response of the effector. Which is the effector? Muscles is the effector. Now what response it gives? It creates movement. There is movement of muscles so that your hand is moved and your pain is stopped. So this is about reflex actions. So for your homework, read pages 101 and 102, the topic what I have taught today. No, you can find in these 2 pages. Please read your daily lessons so that it is easy for you for your exams, as well as you remember the concepts very well as soon as you read after watching the videos. So keep reading and keep preparing for your next class test also. Until I meet you in one more class, you all take care and bye bye.